Hey, what's up, everybody?
What's going on?
This is Tony.
And I'm Jenny.
And we are Lido Loca, and this is the Lido Loca Cruise Podcast.
Yay.
Episode 23.
Wow.
Welcome back to the podcast. We've been on a little bit of a hiatus. It is December the 13th, 2020, 12 days until Christmas. Jenny, have you got all of your Christmas shopping done already?
No.
Have you got the most important gifts, and I'm talking about gifts for me, yet?
No.
Oh.
Sorry.
What are we waiting on?
I don't know
what are we waiting on?
Have you gotten my gifts?
Of course.
Have you?
Yes.
Are they in the house?
Mm-hmm.
They are?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
I'll have to search the house now.
You believe me, right?
No.
Okay.
Well, I do, because you would never lie to me.
Well, I might be lying about this.
What?
I might be lying about this.
Okay, so this is a different lie.
Welcome
though, right?
to the podcast. Welcome to the podcast. We've got a pretty cool episode for you today. The main topic that we're going to cover is what are some tips for people that are cruising just as a couple?
Ooh, you and I are a couple.
We are a couple. I got a couple great questions from the listeners out there.
Great. Thank you.
And we are going to recap all of the cruise news that happened the past week.
Awesome.
And then I know you've got a cool travel tip for us.
I do.
So let's get it going on. No time like the present.
Let's get it on.
Let's get it on. I can't believe you don't have my Christmas shopping done yet.
Well, I mean, I have some of your gifts, but they're not in the house, though.
I just don't believe it. Let's talk about some tips for cruising as a couple. Now, we cruise in several different ways. Sometimes we cruise with a big group of people, like 30, 40, 100 people.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if we've ever cruised with 100 people.
We have.
We were going to. Have we cruised with 100 people?
Yeah.
It's a lot of people.
It is.
We have cruised with family
That's
before
wonderful.
also.
Yes.
And then there are some special times where we get to cruise as a couple. Now,
Just me and you.
That seems pretty straightforward. That seems pretty simple, but it's not always easy to cruise as a couple. And so we want to offer some tips up for that.
Okay.
My first tip is go with the flow and don't be demanding.
Oh, you know what? That was kind of in my thought process as well. It was be less selfish with the time and do what Tony wants to do too.
Well, that's nice. I didn't put it in like do what Jenny wants to do, but the reality is we are two different people, right?
Right.
We have some very common interests. There's some things we both like, but then there's some things we don't necessarily like that the other one likes.
Right.
And so I think the cool thing about going on a cruise ship is you don't necessarily have to only do what one person wants to do. You shouldn't only do what the one person wants to do, especially if you guys don't like exactly the same thing.
Right.
So what do we do?
Well,
How do we overcome that?
I sometimes take away from my time in the casino and I go hang out in the theaters with you. And I like the shows also. So that's not really giving up much of my time because I enjoy spending that time with you and watching the videos, watching the shows, but
Yeah, the interesting thing that I noticed, and it kind of evolved, right? On our first cruise, we seemed like it bothered us, right? Like, I want to do this, and you want to do that, and then if one of us didn't want to do it, the other one did. It was like, But then what we realized is, when you're on the cruise ship, it's kind of like you don't have to be together all the time,
right.
And it's not like you've abandoned each other.
Exactly.
Right. Some people might feel like that. Well, if I don't do everything with my significant other, then, we're not having a good time together. Now, I know some people want to always be on top of each other, do all the exact same things.
And that's cool too.
But I have seen situations where that's the case and one person dominates what the other person wants to do. And there's some bitterness that rises up.
Absolutely.
That hasn't happened with us because pretty quickly we drew those boundaries and said, hey, there's going to be times, I think we allowed ourselves not to be mad if I say, hey, I want to go do. I think we've allowed ourselves the chances. If I say something like, hey, I want to go watch this thing on the Lido, or I want to go listen to a lecture about something, and you don't want to do it, I think you feel pretty comfortable going, I don't want to do that. I'm going to be over here, and I'm not mad about it.
Right, and I mean, and this is the same, right? Like, I don't need you to be doing something that you don't want to do. Right, because it's your vacation as well.
Right.
And I want you to enjoy yourself as well.
Right.
And there are plenty of times on the ship that we spend a lot of time together.
Yeah.
It's not like we, in the morning, all right, here's my cup of coffee. I'll see you this evening for dinner. That's not kind of how we roll, but...
Right. But we give ourselves the latitude not to get mad when we don't do...
Right.
But I think the reason that we can do that is because we do know for sure there are going to be certain things that we always do together that's special for us.
Right.
And so to me, like dinner, like we know that that's a connection point for us. We know that we're going to change into our evening clothes, and that's not getting dressed up or anything. That's just usually we change from whatever we were wearing during the day into something, for the evening, and it almost becomes like a little date night every night. And that's what makes it special. So we can knock around, do whatever you want during the day, and then even do whatever you want later in the evening. But at that dinner time, we know we're either going to go to the main dining room and have a sit-down dinner and enjoy each other's company, or we're going to go to a specialty restaurant. And I think because we know that is in place, that it makes it a lot easier to, if we didn't do anything at all together all the time, I think that would be a little bit troubling.
That would be very troubling. I mean, like, I enjoy my time with you, but I also enjoy seeing your super smile.
Yeah, and I enjoy seeing you happy too, and I enjoy watching you enjoy that cruise life. And so I definitely enjoyed that aspect of it. So I think if we were going to distill that down into a tip, like the tip would be make sure that you have one event each day that you are committed to doing together, and that it's something special that you guys both like.
Right.
Like the one event can't be the thing that the other person likes and you don't.
Right. Like we always meet up for dinner.
Yeah.
We always go for a show after.
Yeah.
And then we sit and we'll go to the casino maybe, or go listen to music together.
Yeah, and I'm not hard pressed to make you go to the show. So I mean, there's times where I go to the show by myself. So like if you're not feeling the show, I'm not like, oh, you got to go to the show. It's just the dinner is the main thing. Like if all of a sudden we were blowing off dinner, I think that would be a problem.
That would be a big problem.
All right, so we haven't really talked about this in a long time. Let's think about cruising as a couple, and let's think about the packing experience. Now, what would you recommend for couples that are cruising together when it comes to packing?
So, I mean, how we do it, right, is that we've evolved, right? We used to take everything from the house, and because we didn't want to be without it on the sea, right?
Yeah.
So we have evolved in the fact that we just do a small suitcase for each other, and then we usually just have one, like, combinable.
Yeah.
And then you have, your work bag, and I have my work bag.
Yeah, and I don't think that we maybe like one of the first cruises we intermixed our clothes. Like we used packing cubes, and like some of my stuff was in your suitcase, some of your stuff was in my suitcase. Like we tried to take just one big suitcase so that we could pull that off, but it wasn't great. And so I think one of the things we learned pretty quick is just pack your own bag. And there's been times where you pack my bag. There's been times where I packed your bag. What we find works best, though, is if you want to get on the cruise ship and make sure that you have the stuff that you want, you got to kind of pack your own bag. And you can't be mad at the other person. Like if you let the other person pack your bag and then all of a sudden you're complaining about something that didn't make it on the cruise ship, it's kind of out of line. So, like you said, it's evolved for us. The thing that works for us is we have our own luggage. We pack our own luggage for the most part, and that way we're kind of content when we're on the cruise ship. There's a few things that the cool thing about going cruising is we don't fight about money very much.
Right.
Traditional vacation, there's a lot of chances to fight about money.
Right.
Where are we going to go for dinner? Wow, this menu seems kind of expensive. What if the food's not good there? Oh man, I would love to take all the kids to this museum, but that's going to cost us a couple $100. Like, there's a lot of places in traditional vacationing where you can fight about money. So let's take that out.
That's the beauty of cruising, right?
You don't have that money stress on the cruise ship. There's so many choices. You don't necessarily, so many food choices, so many entertainment choices. So that's another pain point that you normally have in traditional vacationing. What are you going to eat? What are you going to do for entertainment? Those things kind of come off. And so there's not a lot of stress. There's not a lot of pain points there. Yeah. I'm trying to think what we normally get mad about. Sometimes, now this is one that we'll get, and these are things you got to talk about with your significant other.
Okay.
Sometimes I wake up earlier than you, and I'm ready to get out of the cabin. Sometimes you don't like it when I get out of the cabin before you. Like, I just want to get out, go do something, and you're like, no, you better wait until I get ready to go. And sometimes that can be a little point of contention for us, but we work through that. Normally I'll come and I'll try to win you over with a cup of coffee. Like, I'll go out and I'll bring a cup of coffee back, then we'll set up a meeting time. But so that's what you gotta determine with your significant other. can you leave the cabin at the same time? Like, do you start the day together? Do you end the day together? When does this divergence happen? But yeah, I can't think of a lot of times we get stressed on the cruise ship. But that is one of them that I know we have in the past. But I don't know.
Because I don't want to miss anything, but yet I want to sleep in.
That's right. That's right. I'll tell you. So this wasn't. Let me just say this: if you're not early risers,
Right.
don't order the continental breakfast at 6:30 in the morning.
Wasn't that like on our second cruise?
We learned that the hard way. So continental breakfast sounds great, where you write down what you want, you put it outside your door, and they will bring it to you, and they will bang on the door until you come get it.
They do.
And they do that early.
Yeah.
So if you stay up late all night in the casino, and then you get awoken at 6:30 in the morning, that can be a challenge.
People named Tony are not happy.
Oh,
And he usually wakes up happy.
were you happy to be woken up at well, you didn't get up. I'm the one that had to get up and get the...
I mean, it didn't bother me any.
I didn't think so. The other thing that you want to do while you're on the cruise, I think, as a couple is do like, look, I know not everybody's super duper romantic, but cruising is a romantic activity, right? And so if you're somebody that's not traditionally romantic, take at least one opportunity to do something romantic. Maybe get some flowers sent to your room, go for a nice specialty dining night, or it could be even more simple than that. Take 10 minutes. I tell you, I know that I love it. I really feel like you love it too. When the sun's gone down and the stars are shining in the sky and the breeze is coming off the ocean and the upper decks are kind of less crowded because people are inside doing things, just take a walk. Just take a walk, sit down there, somewhere outside, look into your love's eyes. It's super romantic, right?
Well, it's super romantic, and it's just, for me, I think why it's so romantic, right, is that there's no worries. You don't have any worries in the world.
Right.
At that moment, it's just you and me.
Right.
And that's what's lovely and romantic about it.
I'm having a moment here. I'm having a moment. Okay, yeah, so try to be romantic. I don't know, just, I guess the best thing to do, I didn't really make a list of tips, so I'm just trying to put it all together in my head. The deal is just communicate well. I really think that's it. And that's maybe the secret to most.
Well, that's the secret of any good relationship.
That's the secret of most of this when it comes to relational, getting along. Just make sure that you communicate well.
Disagreeing is also communicating.
Yeah, as long as you do it with respect.
That's right.
And as long as you're not outrageous.
And you don't roll your eyes.
As long as you don't roll your eyes or huff. Because a huff will get you. A huff has never solved anything.
It doesn't, Tony.
A huff has never solved anything. So, Jenny, we've kind of put an outline there for couples on a cruise ship. What is a great couples memory you have from our cruise experiences?
Wow, there's been so many.
She's struggling.
I think my favorite time was probably we had a lunch on Princess. And not that the scenery was romantic, but it was super cool and like that Irish pub thing. And I just thought to myself, I'm like, wow, how lucky am I to be able to experience this, but then also with the person that I love, and like to just see your smile. And I think anytime we get on a ship and just seeing your smile it melts my heart all the time.
Well, we need to get back on a ship.
Yeah, we do.
My favorite memory is when we got the couples massage together.
Oh, yes.
In Cozumel at Mr. Sancho's. Like, look, I mean, the whole world melted away, and I knew you were just on the table next to me. I was like super chill, super relaxed. You could hear the ocean, you could feel the sea breeze, and I knew that the relaxation that I was experiencing, that you were experiencing that right at the same time. Like, how often in life do you know that somebody that is so important to you is experiencing exactly the same thing at exactly the same time? Now, I know our experience was probably different physically, but the idea that we were both being taken away in this beautiful place to a beautiful, restful, just relaxation, it was a pretty great moment. I loved it.
Can I take mine back?
Yeah.
I want to use that one.
That's a good one. I mean,
that is a good one.
That's why I asked first. Then, that's
nice.
All right, so we kick it over to you lovely listeners. Do you have, what's your secret when you're just cruising with your significant other? What do you like to do to stay connected on the cruise ship? Leave us some feedback, leave us some comment. And speaking of comments and feedback, we have a couple great questions from our listeners out there today. Jenny, are you ready for some listener questions?
I am. Give it to me.
The first question comes from Helen Thomas on Facebook. For those that don't go to the beaches, what is the best way to research things to do in a port?
That's a great question.
Yeah, so the way that I answer that question is I like to use TripAdvisor. So TripAdvisor has information on almost every destination, tourist destination, travel destination in the world. And normally on every one of those destinations, they have a top 10 list. And so for a lot of these islands in the Caribbean, there will be a beach or two, but there's also a good variety of non-beach things. And also U.S. News and World Report has a similar section, a travel section. They do rankings every year of different kind of things that you can travel. So they also have like a recommended thing. So for me, those are the two things I do. If I'm in a local town like here in the U.S. and I want to know what to eat, I use Yelp, but I find that Yelp's not as widespread. So I use the TripAdvisor, I use the U.S. News and World Report, and then I'm fortunate because I am married to a travel agent, and travel agents have some insight to that too. Jenny, what do you do to help your clients when they're trying to figure out what to do at a port destination?
So like you said, Tony, being a travel agent, I have access to different just like different details on the ports. So what I'll do, and like you, I do go to TripAdvisor, I check out my software, and then I go to YouTube and I look at those videos of things that were done at those specific places. To see if if I have someone that says, hey, I really have mobility issues, is this going to be okay? So I'll do my research that way.
No, that's an excellent point. And I know people that make videos for YouTube, and I tell you what, going and watching YouTube for what to do at a cruise port, that's great advice.
Yeah.
Great advice. So that was a super great question. Thank you, Helen. I hope you got your answer. The next question comes from somebody that we both know.
Okay.
From my brother.
Ooh.
Chris Barnett, but he posted it on Facebook where I asked him to post it, so that's a great question.
Okay.
Obviously, it's going to cost the cruise lines a lot of money to reopen and meet all the guidelines. How do you think the cruise lines will cut costs / save money without passing the burden on to the passengers?
Okay. That's a good one.
Good question, brother.
So, I think that they're going to, here's a for instance, right? So when you go on the ship and everyone has to do a muster drill, right?
Yes.
That takes a good hour or two. It also takes crew away from what their normal jobs are, right? So you're still paying those hours. I think going to digital muster drill is going to save a lot of time for a lot of people.
I think so too. I think there will be technology that's going to be used that is going to make it
paper menus.
Make it easier, but I don't think, to answer the question, I don't think that cruising is going to be cheaper for passengers in the short term.
Not in the short term, but I think that it'll even out again.
Yeah, I think it's going to take some time. So just to be very blunt, I don't think that cruising is going to be a cost competitive approach right away. What's going to have to happen is cruising is going to have to start back in full force. It's simple supply and demand. There's a lot of people that want to go cruising right now, and the ability for people to cruise is very limited. Of course, it's not happening at all right now in the United States. And once it starts up, it will still be limited. So I think I think cruisers will start to see good discounts again when cruise lines get competitive, and the cruise lines will only get competitive when they have more empty spots on cruise ships than they do people who want to get on them. And I think for the first year or so, once cruising restarts, that they're going to have plenty of people on board, and as businesses do, they're going to try to make the most money possible off of those people after a year or so of losing a ton of money. So I don't think cruising is going to be cheap for the next year. There's probably still going to be deals to get. You'll probably still get casino deals, and when companies like Expedia that we work with run specials, but I don't think it's going to be bargain cruising for quite a while.
No, but they are going to eventually even out, right? Because, like I said, they're going to be implementing all these new processes, and they'll keep some of them that will, in the long run, save money.
Yes. Yeah, I think we'll get there, but I just don't think it's going to be
No, because like you said, I agree with you. You know, supply and demand.
Good question, my brother. Thank you, Chris and Helen, for sending in a question. We love to answer your questions. Please leave us a question on Facebook, or you could email us a question. Email it to me, tony@lidoloca.com. All right, Jenny, so those were questions from the viewer. I got a question.
Okay.
What is the Jenny B travel tip this week?
I'm Jenny B.
That's you.
That's me, and I have a tip for you this week. This week, I'm going to talk about credit cards. So before you even head out, definitely get in touch with your bank institution, your financial institution. Let them know that you're going to be going out of the country, out of the state. I know just us moving here, going from North Carolina to Florida, my credit card had stopped working because they didn't know I was traveling.
Oh, yeah.
You remember?
Yeah.
Like we went to get gas. So that's my first tip. And then with the credit card as well, maybe bring 2 different ones, just in case one does stop working.
That's a good tip.
So then you have another one.
Banks and credit card companies are trying to make sure that people aren't using your payment methods, you know, for the wrong reasons or at all.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's a good...
Is Jenny B really in the Cayman Islands?
That's a good point. Yeah, let your banks know, let your credit card companies know, and that way you won't... That'd be the worst, to get cut off from your phone. Look, I've been places where I haven't had money before.
I know.
On a cruise. Wasn't good.
No.
It wasn't good. And so, yeah, you want to make sure. That's a great tip.
Well, thank you.
A great tip. So we're getting close to breaking down the top 10 news stories for last week.
Okay.
Which I'm interested to see your take on some of these.
Okay.
It's been an interesting week for
Me
us
too.
here at Lido Loca. Before we get there, I want to tell you about a couple things that are going on. If you would like to represent the Loca fam, we do have merchandise. We have our merchandise on Teespring. I will leave a link in the description or in the show notes that you can go and check out the t-shirts that we have. If you need help with your travel planning, please reach out to Jenny by email. Her email is...
jbarnette at expediacruises.com, and it's JBARNETTE.
Jenny can book land vacations. She can book cruise vacations. And one of the things we do here at La Lido Loca is we have group cruises where we can all go cruising together based on what's going on with today's show.
Yes.
Which group cruise would you recommend?
I would recommend the Princess 2022. We're going on the Princess Sky, February 12th of 2022.
Sounds romantic.
Yes, it does. We have, Princess is the love boat, and it's, it's Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day cruise? We got one of those?
We do, and we have couples, and we have solos, and we have me and you.
That's right. So come celebrate Valentine's Day with us on a romantic cruise ship, the Princess Sky, that is in February of 2022. Mm-hmm. And we might be celebrating our wedding anniversary close to
That's right.
Okay, so it will be lovey-dovey.
It's the 19 years.
19 years. Wow.
Wow.
We would love to have you guys with us. Again, send an email to Jenny, jbarnette at expediacruises.com. All right, let's get into the top 10 news stories from last week.
Give them to me, Tony B.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, number 10 on my list. Carnival Cruise Line has cruises scheduled in March, and it's not just a few cruises. It's 14 cruise ships spread across 9 ports here in the U.S.
Okay.
So that means that's 78 days from now. What do you think? Do you think Carnival will? Do you think those cruises will sell, or do you think those are likely to be canceled?
It's tough, right? Because nobody knows if they've had the test sailings yet, right? Because the cruises have been at port. Do we know if they're just sitting there and going through the motions with, testers? I think I'm going to be at 75% that they'll not sail.
I think that's fair. And to your point, if there has been any test cruise activity, it has not been made public.
Right.
A lot of these cruise ships are making their way back to the United States. We can track along with them a little bit on the CDC's report. And so we're starting to see like the Carnival Breeze showed up on that report this week with a green status. But I don't really know if that sheet tells us everything that we need to know. So that's what I wonder. How long will it take to get through the test process? Let's say that January 1, let's just say that in 18 days from now, the Carnival Breeze has the crew that it needs and they're starting to do test sailings. It is feasible in my mind that for, the next 2 months, they could do test sailings and then go in March. Of course, there's a lot going on. I think the COVID numbers have to get better here in the United States before they allow cruising to go. So I'm not naive to that, but I do kind of prescribe to the idea that if it ain't canceled, it ain't canceled.
That's right.
And so in reality, if it's not canceled, it's not canceled. But I'm with you. I'm more on I think 75 is generous. 75%. I feel more like they're going to cancel than not cancel. But they haven't canceled yet.
Well, and they came out with their cancellations, and then they came out with cancellations of just 3 ships.
Right.
So I mean, maybe they are getting their schedule together and getting ready for 78 days. Excellent.
And that's a nice segue into the next story. Carnival has canceled 3 cruise ships so that they can remain in dry dock.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those 3 cruise ships were the Carnival Magic. It's going to be, so it's canceled all the way through September the 24th, 2021. They're going to finish the dry dock on that. The Paradise is going into dry dock, and it won't come out until May the 31st, 2021. And the Carnival Valor is canceled until September the 11th, 2021.
Right.
So what President Christine Duffy said is that these 3 cruise ships have been tagged for dry dock. They did have cruises scheduled on them, but now they've made the determination to just put them in dry dock, do the dry dock work, and then put sailings on them again when they come out. So, yeah, to your point, this past week, in addition to the January, February sailings for Carnival that people got canceled, people that were on these 3 cruise ships also got canceled.
Right.
Is there anything more depressing than getting your cruise canceled at this point?
Being the person that has to deliver that news.
Okay, that's true. You do call a lot of people and tell them that their cruise got canceled.
Yeah, every time there's a cancellation, even if you and I are not affected, my heart just breaks every time there's a cancellation.
Yeah, it's a weird situation that we have. So I'm waking up every day, or I'm waking up in the middle of the night sometimes searching for cancellation news so that I can be the bearer of bad news.
Right.
To the general public, which is depressing. Like you said, it is depressing. And then if you're actually working one-on-one with people, letting them know that their thing got canceled, super depressing. Mm-hmm. And then our cruises get canceled. Now, you take it all with a grain of salt, right?
Right.
It is just cruising, but it's very important to a lot of people. It's very important to people that get their income from cruising, crew members, travel agents, all of that stuff, everybody that's affected in a negative way that way. But then there's also people that are just... they're overburdened with the emotional and mental stress because of 2020. And so, as much as people that are our clients, just in general, I would love to see people that are stressed out right now have that opportunity to go cruising. And so every time you get this cancellation news, it's a little depressing. But again, there's a whole slew of cruises that are scheduled for March, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I have to say that, everybody, when I do get in touch with them, they're either expecting it and, they're kind, I'm just the one that delivers the news.
That's right. The bearer of bad news. I'm used to it with you.
Thanks.
I mean that in the nicest way possible.
I'm sure.
In the nicest way possible. Nice. So story number 10, story number 9. Story number 8 that I'm excited about this. Norwegian Cruise Line announced this week that it would be a Norwegian Cruise Line Holding Group, the whole company, announced that they would be upgrading the air filtration systems on 28 of their cruise ships, the whole fleet.
This is a big deal.
It is a big deal. It's interesting technology. It is called bipolar ionization. Now, the way I thought of filters for the longest time is I felt like, I think of like in our house where air flows through it, it traps dust, and then clean air flows out the other side. That's not how this bipolar ionization works. It puts these charged particles in the air. It just shoots it out into all the space.
Right.
And then those particles attack other particles that are in the space. And the claim of this company, Atmos Air, who's partnering with Norwegian, is that it can basically kill the virus. I'm all for it. So they're investing a lot of money in it. There's some interesting conversation I've seen in the community, in the comments on YouTube when I talked about this on one of the daily shows.
Right.
But the other piece of the story is if you look at their customer page, of course, it shows in the hospitality area, it shows like companies like Gaylord, the big hotel that's in Nashville,
right.
Also here in Orlando. And they also show that Carnival Cruise Line is a customer. And so I believe, and they have a press release on Virgin Voyages. So there could be more than one cruise company that's going to leverage this new filtration, this new air filtration system to possibly attack pathogens that are in the air on cruise ships.
Well, and what's kind of cool is that it's been tested, right? Because it's been around for a while with, Gaylord and Carnival. So
yeah, they've been using this technology for like 40 years, and so it's used in healthcare, it's used in food service, and it wasn't invented just to deal with COVID,
right?
But apparently there is an application, and so it's going to be interesting.
Good.
Interesting. So we did mention Virgin Voyages in that story, and that actually becomes number 7 on the list. Virgin Voyages out with delays. I don't even want to call it cancellations. I'll get depressed. Virgin Voyages, the Scarlet Lady, has never had her debut
I know,
cruise.
It's so sad. That beautiful woman.
That ship's been trying. But canceled again. They were scheduled for January, or delayed again, sorry. They were scheduled for January. So Virgin delays the Scarlet Lady, the debut, until May the 9th, 2021. And then they already have a second ship. They haven't even sailed the first ship. They already got a second ship, the Valiant Lady. It was supposed to come out in the summer. Now it's not coming out until November the 14th, 2021. So who knows if anybody's going to like Virgin? We've heard mixed reviews of the influencers that have been on Virgin Voyages. I'm excited to see what happens, what customers think about it, but that's not happening until May the 9th.
May the 9th. They've been pretty good with their delays. So they were kind of...
I do understand that they're a great company when it comes to delays and refunds. The people that we know that had their Virgin Voyages cruises canceled, they got their money back really quick.
Absolutely, they did.
So that's pretty exciting. So I think Virgin Voyages is almost a great metaphor for 2020, for us moving to Florida. So we just picked the exact wrong time to do what we did.
That's right.
Virgin Voyages picked the exact wrong time to become a cruise company.
That's right.
But not that you don't know these things when you pick, but that's how it happened.
But you know what? They're going with the flow, and they're doing a good job at their back end, right? So
yeah, they're fortunate. I mean, they're backed by the company Virgin, which has piles of money from all kinds of different other businesses, and so they're in a good space. And fortunately, it's only 2 cruise ships, so at least it's not like some company that just started and it's got 10 or 15 ships in their fleet.
Right.
That could be bad.
Yes.
All right, so number 6 on my list, there was an extension of a no-sell order, this time down under. Australia has extended its no-sell order for 90 days. Now, the way it works down there is they can only extend it for 90 days at a time, and so the date was coming up here in mid-December. They're proactive on it. Even though they're having a good time, a good time's probably the wrong word to use. Even though they are managing the situation with the virus well in Australia, they feel like it's not the right time to start cruising. They have extended their no-sell order for 90 days into March.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so all of the cruise lines adjusted with that, Carnival changing some of their schedules in Australia. And so we see cruising right now in Asia. We see cruising in some parts of Europe, but there continues to be a hold on cruising in the UK. There continues to be a hold on cruising in Australia. Canada is not even going to look at the next year's season until February. And of course, we're working through the CDC framework here. So cruising's happening in some places, not happening in others. And Australia is going to look at it again in 90 days.
Yeah, so you got to wonder, what's going to happen in February with Canada?
That's going to be a big deal.
It's going to be a very big deal for Alaska.
That the Alaskan season hinges on the decision that Canada makes in February. Again, they've had their numbers go up and down. The interesting thing about 2020 is if you slice it up into 90-day increments or 120-day increments, it looks different.
Absolutely.
And so, we can't let ourselves get in the trap, and I feel like sometimes people do. We can't let ourselves get into the trap of thinking what the world looks like today is what the world's going to look like in 90 days. And so I think I would challenge people to keep an open mind. Like I'm hoping that it looks better.
Right.
Now, I know some people go directly to, I think it's going to look the same or worse, but I tend to swing on the other side of it. So, again, we're at a place here that I didn't think we would be. I thought we were through the worst of it, and now we're even in a worse spot. And so, to me, like, I don't know how further down we can go. Hopefully, we will be on the way up. There's some things coming around the corner that could help that, and that is my next story.
What is your next story, Tony?
Story number 5. It's tied into cruising, but the UK has started giving people the vaccine, the Pfizer vaccine.
Exactly.
So that bodes well. The vaccine is actually going into people's arms, and the United States approved with an emergency approval the Pfizer vaccine. Now, it's early in that process. That vaccine was developed quickly, but and we probably won't get it for 6 months. There's a lot of people in the line in front of us,
right?
But we should start seeing relatively quickly over the next few weeks how people react to this vaccine. And so that could bode well. If all of a sudden, we're talking about getting the numbers down, more and more people that are vaccinated, more and more opportunity for herd immunity, less and less COVID out there.
Well, and it's 2 doses, isn't it?
Yeah, you got to get 2 doses, and I think that's in a 1-month period.
Okay.
And so it'll take a while to get everybody. And of course, it makes sense. People that are healthcare workers and first responders, and then the elderly, those kind of people are getting it first.
Right.
And then down the road, you hear some of the people talk here in the U.S. that by April or May, anybody who wants to get the vaccine should be able to get the vaccine. So we'll have to see how that changes the numbers.
So then you got to wonder, is that when cruising is going to start?
Yeah, that's going to be the interesting thing. I did talk about it in another show this week. Will the cruise lines mandate people to be vaccinated before they can use their service? We heard the head of Qantas Airlines, the Australian airline, say that there would be a vaccine requirement to travel on Qantas, and I believe they can do that as a business. The question is, will the cruise lines do that, and how will that affect people that can't take the vaccine?
Well, listen,
it's a tough question.
I think the cruise lines are going to do it. If they can stop anybody from any breakouts, they're going to demand that you get that, right?
Right.
Because they want to cruise. They want us on those ships.
That's the end goal. The end goal is to cruise without incident. The incident is what kills the cruise line because of the negative press. And then this whole idea, at least from the U.S. consumer, I've heard it time and time again on the videos and in conversation, I don't want to cruise if I got to social distance, if I got to wear a mask, if I have to have all these rules. Maybe vaccine is the answer to that. Like, I hear less people that are resistant to vaccines than those things. And so I don't know, I'm sure if you're a leader at the cruise line, you're listening to all this and you're trying to just figure it out, right? Do we require the vaccine and deal with the people that are upset about us requiring the vaccine? Or do we not require the vaccine and make people wear masks and deal with that? I don't think there's any easy answers. It's going to be interesting to see what the cruise companies decide.
Right. And listen, I respect the fact, right, that if people don't want to cruise wearing a mask, I get it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's your vacation. You want to do what you want to do, but you may have to do something else for a little bit.
Right.
Like me, I'm like, you know what? You want me to wear a mask? Sew it to my face, and I'm ready. Let's go.
Yeah, and that's an interesting conversation that we definitely could have. Somebody asked me the other day, well, what fun would cruising be in a mask and socially distanced? It would be fine for me. I'm not one that's rubbing shoulders with strangers anyways. I mean, if that means that strangers are going to stay far away from me, then I'm good with it. So, I'm okay with it. I tell you what, I just like to get on the cruise ship. I like to see the ocean. I'll get a balcony room. I just like being on the ship.
Right.
And if I can go sit in a theater 6 feet away from somebody else wearing a mask and watch somebody do a Broadway show, I'm good with that.
Absolutely.
And I can go to the restaurant and take my mask off and have dinner with you. I'm good with it. And so I know that's not for everybody. Some people, cruising is a lot more of a social situation than that. And but I think it's going to be at least a year for this. If we look at the framework for conditional sailing, that doesn't expire until November 2021. And that's got the mask, and it's got the social distancing. It's got all that stuff. Now, will the vaccine change those orders? Will that change? We don't know that yet, but it could. And so I don't know. Straight up, would you, if recommending a vaccine means no mask on the cruise ship, would you mandate the vaccine?
Yes.
Okay, so that's an interesting question that people are having to answer. Yeah, again, I'll take the vaccine. Somebody asked me that question. I don't have any reason not to take the vaccine. I don't usually take the flu vaccine, but I've had the MMR. Anytime I've had polio, I don't know, smallpox, I don't know if they still give that stuff, but anytime that I've had to take those shots, I have.
Well, and listen, the bottom line is it's a business, right? These cruise lines are in business to make money.
Yes.
So, they have to be teeter-tottering kind of, right? Like, hey, let's get people back on, hopefully without any incident, with masks, very minimally.
Yeah.
At least let's get out there, start making our money, because last year they could only not be in business for a year.
Right.
Right. So
yeah, I'm
sure they want some money coming in.
Yeah.
So, but then your thing is, well, if we do that and then there is incident, how much further are they going to suspend us?
Yeah, it's a tough place to be in. I think they're going to continue with these protocols. They're going to try to get cruising started. We've seen successful cruising in Asia. We've seen successful cruising in Europe. Over 100,000 people, I believe, is the number, have cruised this summer in those places.
Right.
When you add it all up, and so I know the U.S. is chomping at the bit to say, well, let us get 100,000 people out there following these protocols, and that's going to be interesting to see. So, the big news this week are those vaccines, and we'll just have to watch and see how the vaccines change the face of cruising. All right, number 4 on my list.
What's number 4?
Disney has canceled all cruises that are longer than 7 nights.
I think that, that's the norm right now. So also this week, Carnival put on hold their over 7 days.
That's number 3 on my list. But yes, let's talk about 4 and 3 at the same time.
Okay.
So what's the dealio? Princess has canceled their long cruises.
Right.
Now Disney has canceled their cruises. Mm-hmm. And so, but Carnival comes out and says, we know that the long cruise is a problem. We just want to tell you that we know it's a problem. We're not canceling your cruise.
Which I think is a brilliant move.
Right.
Right? Because it's like, hey, let's get out and start cruising before I cancel these 7+ days at the end of the year.
So would you not rather be canceled now and make some other plan, or what? I mean, how close to your 8-day cruise do you want to be canceled when it seemed like all year you could be canceled?
Well, I mean,
I'm just playing devil's advocate.
I mean, it's a little frustrating, right, for the person that's on there, but I can see why. But on the other hand, right, I have guests of mine that are on 8-days that did receive this notice because I sent it to them.
Yeah.
And they're okay with it. They're like, well, I mean, we kind of knew it was coming from the CDC, and but at least they didn't cancel it, so there's still hope that I can go on it.
Okay.
Well, and I think that's it. Like the cruise lovers, we just have hope.
I know, and I think hope is the right thing to have, but
right.
The message was weird to me. Like, we know that we might have to cancel, but we're not canceling yet, and all these other places are canceling. The one thing I don't think is going to happen is I don't think those 8-day cruises are going to turn into 7-day cruises. I could be wrong. I've heard some people speculate that out there, but I think it's more difficult for the cruise line to start chopping days out of cruise itineraries than to cancel and restart.
Right. And
because people are going to want credits, and how are you going to deal with that?
Well, and I think that, a lot of Carnival putting that out was because as a travel agent, as customer service, those were the questions we were getting. Well, what do you think they're going to do with this cruise? And, and none of us knew. So now at least this kind of squashes that, like, hey, we're well aware that you have a cruise that's 7+ days. We don't know what we're doing yet.
Right. I guess that's the answer, right? To your point, when customers ask, at least you can say, this is the latest statement on it.
Right.
Okay. So that was number 4. That was number 3. Number 2, and we're getting to the point of the biggest story of the week. Number 2 is there was a confirmed case of COVID on the Quantum of the Seas on the cruise to nowhere in Singapore.
Was there?
Well, okay, here's how it played out. Now, we'll give you some insight.
Give me the rundown.
We'll give you some insight how the cruise news works. I don't remember what night it was, but it was Tuesday night. Tuesday night before we do a live show on Tuesday night. We do a live show on Sunday. Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern. That number may be changing, so check on the Sunday show. But on Tuesday at probably like 8:30, we started getting reports that there was a confirmed case of COVID on the Quantum of the Seas. And both of us looked at each other and we said curse words. And it's like, oh, this is going to be horrible for cruising. The media is going to run with it. They're going to trash it. Jenny says, should you do a video? And I'm like, you know what? I am just going to wait. I am going to wait and see what happens. So we do our live show on Tuesday. We go to bed. I wake up. I get up at, 8 or 9 o'clock, and my goal is to have this story out about the Quantum by no later than 11:30.
Right.
Because, I want to be there. I want to make sure that I give people the news. I'm checking the story. Boom. We still got COVID on the Quantum. Boom. We still got, so I record the whole video. I edit the whole video. I publish the video at 11:15.
Right.
And at 11:20, the story comes out that that's a false positive.
That's right.
So it was a confirmed case in all of the media outlets, all of the reporting for 18 or 20 hours. And then that became the number one story of the week, that it was a false positive. Now, an 83-year-old gentleman, a lot of good points to this story, though. So let me share it. This is Royal Caribbean's Quantum of the Seas. Cruise to nowhere. Only people can cruise on these cruises are people in Singapore.
Right.
Royal Caribbean, the second major cruise liner that's doing this in Singapore. The first of them is Genting Cruises, the World Dream cruise ship. They're about a month into it. This guy gets on board, 83-year-old guy, reports to the medical facility that he has diarrhea. They give him a COVID test. He tests positive for the COVID. They announce at 2:45 a.m. to all the guests that you have to stay in your cabin. They start pulling together the contact tracing data to find out who this guy was in contact with, and then they whip the ship around and start heading back to Singapore.
Right.
By the time they get back to Singapore, they know the crew members and the other people that he was in contact with. They put them in isolation, and then they get all of the people, the rest of the people, once they get back to Singapore, they get the dude off the cruise ship. They let all the other passengers go home, and then when he is in the facility in Singapore, they test him 3 more times, and he's negative each time. And then they even take the original sample that tested positive, and they test that in Singapore, and it comes up negative. So this was a big thing. A lot of people had their cruise canceled for no reason. Everybody started, lighting the torches and grabbing the pitchforks, saying, we told you the testing was not going to work. I just think this is an opportunity. So all the protocols worked. Royal Caribbean did the right thing.
Absolutely.
The one protocol I would add was, could you get a second test on the cruise ship before you turn the thing around? I don't know. I haven't seen all the details on that, but I would add that step, because it does not seem, it just seems like, boom, they kicked in, right? Well, it's positive. Ooh, turn the ship around.
Super impressive.
Yeah.
How quickly the turnaround was.
Yes.
In case that was a positive.
This is in their pilot program. That's is part
right.
of their procedures. They're doing exactly what they were supposed to do. However, in the lessons learned section, like I worked in IT for years. If something broke, you would all sit down, a room of nerds. You do a root cause analysis, and then there would be a lessons learned section in the paperwork. I just think after the root cause analysis of this, I would add some way to verify the test on the cruise ship before turning the cruise ship around.
Okay, I would agree.
If that's possible.
Right, if it's possible, and if they have a lab on board that is capable of that.
Well, they had a lab that tested him that one time. Right. So, why wouldn't you just test him 3 times in a row on the cruise ship?
Right. Well, I mean, maybe it's the brand of, I don't know.
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
But that was the biggest. So to me, the biggest cruise news story this week was the 20 hours of the confirmed case on the Quantum.
Such a bad
Everybody was losing their
hours.
mind. It's over. And that's, I did make a video kind of along those lines. Is this the fatal blow to cruising? Because what's so frustrating as a content creator is every time a negative story comes out like this, you can Google the headlines, and every major media outlet has written off cruising at that point.
Right.
All the cruise haters come out in the comments, cruising's over. So yeah, to me, that's the video I made. Can you, at the end of the day, I'm about to soapbox it here. At the end of the day,
Tony.
We have to get to a place where an outbreak is not going to derail cruising forever. Like, the virus is not containable that way.
Right.
The virus will continue to exist. The virus will get on cruise ships. And the question will not be, did you keep the virus off the cruise ship, but what did you do when the virus was detected? So you got to be able to detect it well. It failed in this case. And then you got to be able to contain it well, which they did a great job of that.
Absolutely.
If it actually would have been there. So that is the big cruise news story this week.
Okay. That's a big one.
All right, that is going to wrap up episode 23 of the Lido Loca Cruise Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to see a video presentation of this audio podcast, you can check it out on its very own YouTube channel, the Lido Loca Cruise Podcast YouTube channel. There'll be a link for that in the show notes. And then we would invite all of you guys to come join us on our main YouTube channel, Lido Loca, cruise tips, cruise news, cruise vlogs, and 2 live shows a week where Jenny and I hang out and talk cruising. Jenny.
Tony.
I can't wait till I cruise alone with you as a couple again.
I know. I can't wait.
All right. Good episode, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. My name's Tony.
You want to go for a ride?
Where are we going?
We could go cruising in our car.
Thanks for stopping by, everybody. My name's Tony.
And I'm Jenny.
We are Lido Loca, and until the next time,
We'll see you on the Lido.
we'll see you on the Lido.
Bye.
Bye.